Parshas Yisro, and what the Nesivos Shalom calls always this week, Shabbos Kabbalas HaTorah Tov Shin Pei Vav. So, at the beginning of our parsha, we find that Yisro was coming back. Yisro was coming back to Klal Yisro, and he sees a very interesting sight. Yisro sees that his son-in-law, Yisro, right, he came back with Tzipora, Moshe's wife. He came back with the two children, and he comes to Klal Yisrael and he sees something very interesting going on. He sees his son-in-law, who is now the leader of the entire Klal Yisrael. He sees that Moshe Rabbeinu, probably for very good reason, became extremely popular as the leader of Bnei Yisrael, and that now people were coming to speak to Moshe Rabbeinu from the morning till the night. People had shilas, they needed advice, whatever it was, whatever they wanted to speak about, they all came to Moshe Rabbeinu, and this went on literally from the morning until the night. And Yisro, when he saw this, Yisro felt that this type of demand on the time and the life of Moshe Rabbeinu, Yisro felt it was unsustainable. So Yisro had a plan. He had a plan to help out Moshe Rabbeinu, to help out Klal Yisrael, and he had a suggestion, and the Torah tells us, and the Torah elaborates what this suggestion was. And the Torah says, I'm going to read you the words of the pasuk, then I'll explain the essence of what it means. Anshe Chayil, Yirei Elokim, and it's, when you learn the parsha, it's so interesting to read the Rashis, and Rashi tells you what all these things mean, that why you would need Anshe Chayil, Yirei Elokim, Anshe Emes, Soinei Botza, V'samto Alehem, to put these people in positions of where they can help out Moshe Rabbeinu, but it was structured in a very particular way. And the Torah tells us, Sarei Alafim, those who were in charge of 1,000 people, Sarei Me'os, those in charge of 100 people, Sarei Chamishim, Sarei Asarais, V'shavtu es ha'am b'chol eis, they are going to be the ones who adjudicate the Dinei Torah, and they're going to be the ones to step in and to help out Moshe Rabbeinu. And it's different levels. You know, you're going to first go to a lower court, then you go to an appellate court, right? And the sort of structure like that, then to the Supreme Court, and then there was Moshe Rabbeinu. V'haya kol hadavar hagadol yaviu elecha. Any huge issue that can't be solved by the lower Batei Din, by the lower people, the lower courts, as we would think of it, all those things, Yaviu Elecha, they come to Moshe Rabbeinu, and all the small things, Yishpetu Haim, that they're going to take a tremendous load off of you, Moshe Rabbeinu. You can't do everything alone anymore. You have to hire, or you have to appoint all these different types of people, and people that are going to sort of run the interference a little bit for Moshe Rabbeinu. But the big things that they can't solve, that's still going to come to Moshe Rabbeinu. So that was the suggestion that Yisro had for Moshe Rabbeinu and the Bnei Yisrael. Fantastic idea, great suggestion. But Rashi says something very interesting. Rashi brings a chazal, and Rashi tells us that this parsha, known as the parsha of the S.S.S, that's the way the Torah starts it, right? Rashi said that this parsha was actually said after Yom Kippurim. We know just a bit further in the parsha is Kabbalas HaTorah, thereby calling this week Shabbos Kabbalas HaTorah. We've spoken about that a number of times over the years, how Nesivos Shalom says that all these influences and hashpais of the parsha comes back every year at this time, which tells us that this Shabbos we have a special opportunity to be makabel the Torah, to take on something extra, to learn something extra, to get involved a little more in Torah. But we're not going to get so into that now. The point is that Rashi says that this parsha V'yatosach Hazeh was said after Yom Kippur, which was after Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Har Sinai back to Bnei Yisrael. Just, says Rashi, it was not written after Kabbalas Torah. It was not written in the Torah in its order, because as we know, and Rashi says it over years, is one of the places that's brought down the famous klal of Ein Mukdam U'Mu'uchar B'Torah. In other words, that the Torah is not written in any sort of chronological order. It doesn't go in order of time. The Torah, sometimes things that happened earlier are written later, and things that are later are written earlier. There is no time-based chronological time in the Torah. And the Nesivos Shalom adds that although you have to know something about Ein Mukdam U'Mu'uchar B'Torah, because it's brought down all the time, but the Nesivos Shalom tells us about Ein Mukdam U'Mu'uchar B'Torah. It's true that there is no absolute earlier and later in the Torah. However, when it is out of order, we have to try to know why. No, the Torah doesn't do it for no reason. It's true that the Torah moves things around, earlier dates, later dates, out of order. But so why did this parsha of V'yatosach Hazeh have to be before Kabbalas HaTorah, as opposed to the place that it happened, which was after Kabbalas HaTorah? So the Mechilta tells us famously that the reason that the Torah uses a lashon yachid, before Kabbalas HaTorah, the pasuk tells us, "Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged Ahar." Vayichan means they camped there, but it's a lashon yachid, and it's very famous. We speak about it all the time on Shavuos, and when it comes to Kabbalas HaTorah, it comes to tell us, the Mechilta, famous Mechilta, that Vayichan, that now, right before Kabbalas HaTorah, they had Achdus. Vayichan, they camped there as one. But up until this point, all the other places that they stopped before, it was all with Machlokes, and the Klal Yisrael was not together. So what it does seem from the Mechilta, that the fact that the Mechilta brings this down over here, is that a hachana, a preparation, you want to know how to prepare for a Kabbalas HaTorah, one very important hachana for Kabbalas HaTorah is that they had to be ke'ish echad b'leiv echad. They had to be achdus. They couldn't be machlokes. Everybody had to be getting along. Before Kabbalas HaTorah, if you look at the Pesukim, Hashem spoke to Bnei Yisrael in a lashon rabim. Atem ri'isem asher asisi l'Mitzrayim. Atem, which is a lashon rabim. You all see, Hashem said, what I did to Mitzrayim. Vo'esa eschem al kanfei nisharim. Eschem, again, a lashon rabim, a lashon of a lot of people. Vo'avi eschem, all of you, once again, rabim, Eloi. But the lashon of Kabbalas HaTorah, once we get to Kabbalas HaTorah, that's a lashon yachid. Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzeisecha. Hashem talks to in the singular. I took you out of Mitzrayim, even though Hashem was talking to everyone in Klal Yisrael. Asher hotzeisecha. Why? Because Kabbalas HaTorah had to be b'leiv echad, ke'ish echad, and it had to be everybody as one. And without that, there could not be a Kabbalas HaTorah. Everyone had to be ba'achdus. If Klal Yisrael is missing someone, if Klal Yisrael is missing a part, then there's no Kabbalas HaTorah. The Zohar tells us, the Zohar says, Kutsha Berichu, Araisa v'Yisrael, the three things that we would think are three different entities, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Torah, and Klal Yisrael, the Zohar tells us, Kul Hochad. It's really all one. It's one thing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Torah, and Klal Yisrael, one entity. And just like if we're talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Torah and Klal Yisrael, just like in the Torah, if one ice in the entire Torah, one letter in the entire Torah is missing, the entire Sefer Torah is puzzled. So being that it's all one, the same dinim that would apply to a Sefer Torah apply also to Yisrael. If a Yid is missing, if we push a Yid out the door, if we marginalize a Yid, then there cannot be a Kabbalas Torah. The Torah and Yisrael are one and the same, and it has to be one total unit. We see the Torah says in Seder Devarim, the Torah says, Bonim Hashem, Bonim Atem L'Hashem Alekeichem. That you are all your children of Hashem. Only when we're together, then we're considered Bonim. We don't find that the Torah says a Lashon Yachid, that Ben Ata L'Hashem Alekecha, that you, singular, you are a son to Hashem, because the Torah is talking to every person. It should say, Ben, you're a son. But the Torah says, Bonim Atem L'Hashem Alekeichem. When you're all together, all the children are together, then you are like children to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As we say in Shemona Esrei, we say, Barchenu Avinu Kulanu Ke'echad, as one. And that is why, it says in Nesivos Shalom, that this parsha of S.S.S. had to be before Kabbalas Torah. In a Chanami, the Torah moves things around. But the reason why it could be that the S.S.S. had to be before Kabbalas Torah is because this parsha of the S.S.S. is building the unit and the structure of Klal Yisrael. This is how Klal Yisrael is going to be built. There's going to be a smaller Bezdin, a larger Bezdin, then there's going to be the Gadol Adar, and there's going to be a way to ask Shilas how. We're setting up the structure of Klal Yisrael like a tree that has a tree. First you have to set down the strong roots at the base, and then you branch out, right? There's the tree that's set, and it branches out to more branches, and then to more branches, and to more things. That's how Klal Yisrael blossoms and goes out. But it all has to be based on one solid base of roots. And then v'hakel me'alecha v'nasui tach. The Torah says that Yisro said that it's going to make it easier on you, v'nasui tach, with you, with Moshe Rabbeinu, that everyone who surrounds the source of the sustenance, everybody who surrounds it becomes as one, and it has to be one unit of Klal Yisrael. And really, as we said, as we're now in the week of this Shabbos, we're ready, Erev Shabbos now, so this Shabbos we're going to read Parshas Yisro, we're going to read Kabbalas HaTorah. We have to understand, and we have to think about Avada, we want to make Kabbalas, how we're going to be better, and how we're going to learn a little more, and all these things, realistic Kabbalas. We're going to have, we want to be Makabal the Torah. Another thing that we have to know is that we have to learn the lessons around Kabbalas HaTorah. The message of how vital, in order to have Kabbalas HaTorah, how vital Achdus is to everything, including Kabbalas HaTorah. We have to always speak a little practically that the hachana for Kabbalas HaTorah is belev echad, ki ish echad. We have a chance this Shabbos, when it comes, we have to say enough already of this Yid is good and this one is not good. This Rebbe, yes, this Rebbe, no. This kind of yarmulke, yes. This kind of kippah, no. This jacket, yes. We all have these rules out. Only what we do is perfect, and somebody who looks a little different, acts a little different, no, he's not for us. We don't want him to be in our yeshiva, in our class, in our neighborhood, and this and that. And the Torah is telling us, Kabbalas HaTorah means Achdus. Kabbalas HaTorah means that we accept each other's differences with respect, but we understand that we are there for each other, that we're all part of one unit. And that's a very important lesson of Kabbalas HaTorah. So besides being Mekabel, the learning of Kabbalas HaTorah, we have to be Mekabel what a Yid has to consist of, what we have to be in order to be Mekabel the Torah.